Well, you see, Padmaja, thank you for having me on, but I've never had much respect for Newsclick, nor have I had any respect for the New York Times. There's zero integrity in their entire editorial board. Let's get that out of the way first. Second, I think anybody who's met Prabir will tell you that he's a very naive, innocent, sweet, grown man-child. He doesn't have much discrimination, a sense of discrimination. Do you know the Alcoholics Anonymous Serenity Prayer, Padmaja?
No, I don't actually. Sorry about that.
Okay, let me recite it for you. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, Prabir and his ilk, they don't know the difference. This is their problem. They also don't know the difference between who's playing them and who's not. The problem wasn't the stories which were quoted about, creating negative contrast between India and then America, China, or whatever. The real problem was the other stories that Newsclick ran, which directly impacted Chinese security interests. The first was repeated stories by a journalist called Ravi Nair on the Rafale. Factually incorrect. Every single one of them had factual inaccuracies, which passed their so-called editorial standard and went on getting promoted. Many people in the Congress retweeted this and used his articles. And remember, other than Japan and Korea, the Rafale is the biggest threat to China that you see. So there was very clearly Newsclick taking on an operation which helped the Chinese security environment. The second was Chinese business interests, mining interests specifically in Australia. The second big thing that Newsclick took on was Adani mines in Australia. Right. And Adani was the only other guy. Remember, Australia has a duopoly. One is Rio Tinto and the other is Chinese mining corporations. The only person breaking that monopoly was Adani, who specializes in these greenfield projects. And they were the only one. Adani was the only one chosen for this kind of targeted hit jobs by Newsclick and its journalists. Why is that? Why do you think that is? Now, I don't think Prabir Purkasta or Ravi Nair had the brains to understand what they were doing. You remember the last part, God, please give me the serenity to know the difference. They did not know that. I think, this is what in communist lingo is called a useful idiot. It's a technical term. It's not a swear word or anything. It's a technical term used in a lot of communist literature to find somebody who's gullible enough, naive enough, stupid enough to be manipulated. But what is more dangerous is that political parties which really should have known better should have avoided this like the plague. They did not. There are many more instances. Now, is Chinese investment per se wrong? No. Remember, China and America are the two biggest competitors on earth, but they are completely interdependent. China was created by American investment, and America today thrives on Chinese production. That is not what a negative investment is. Here, there is investment directly coming from the Chinese government to certain political parties or indirectly to certain business houses. Incidentally, Mr. Omidyar is his venture capital is a very big recipient of Chinese funding, and he invests very heavily in the Indian media. Why is that? Why is it that so much of this Chinese venture capital angel investor funding by proxy ends up going to propaganda arms and news agencies and things like that? I really wonder why. Don't you find it really strange? I mean, I'm not quoting the New York Times at all. Please don't ask me to quote the New York Times. I don't touch it with a barge pole. I'm just saying there are too many coincidences here that just add up of people towing the Communist Party line or interests that suit China to become to be a coincidence anymore.